The night was silent, but the silence was not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that carried fear in the air. The ruins of the old war camp stood like broken bones of a giant, their shadows stretching under the cold moonlight. Through this place walked a human soldier, tired and alone, his boots crushing the dust of battles long gone. He was not supposed to be there. His mission was simple: scout the area, report back, and leave. But curiosity was always his weakness. He had heard rumors, whispers of something locked away in the camp, something not human. And now he stood before it. Inside a dark cell, behind iron bars twisted by time, was a figure. At first, he thought it was a corpse, unmoving, silent, but then her eyes opened. Glowing faintly in the dark, sharp as blades, they met his with a stare that froze him in place. She was not human. Her skin had a strange metallic sheen, like stone mixed with silver. Her long dark hair fell over her shoulders in tangled waves. Chains bound her wrists and ankles, heavy and cruel, digging into her skin. The human's hand gripped his weapon tightly. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, to turn back. But something inside him refused to move. She did not speak, not a single word. Yet her eyes seemed to tell him a story of pain, of strength, of waiting. He stepped closer, careful, his breath quick and shallow. "Who are you?" he whispered, though he knew she would not answer. The alien warrior only tilted her head, watching him. For a moment, he thought he saw a flicker of a smile, faint and mysterious. He felt a chill run down his spine. Why was such a powerful being left alive? Why had no one finished her off if she was the enemy? The chain seemed old, but unbreakable, forged with a design beyond human craft. It was clear whoever put her there had not meant for her to escape. The soldier's radio crackled faintly, reminding him he had little time. He should leave, report back, and forget what he saw. But as he looked into her eyes again, he felt trapped by them. It was not a plea for help he saw. It was something else. A calmness, a patience, like a predator waiting in silence. Still, his heart made the choice his mind could not. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. He reached for the chains, examining the locks. They were strange, humming faintly with hidden energy. He knew it was foolish. He knew it was dangerous. But something told him this moment mattered, that his decision would change everything. As his fingers brushed the lock, her eyes narrowed. She leaned forward slightly, her lips curving into that same faint smile. It was not the smile of gratitude. It was something else, something he could not understand. And yet he continued. The first chain fell loose with a heavy clang, echoing in the silence. The sound felt like thunder in his chest. She did not move, not yet, only watching him. He released the second chain, then the third. Each one fell with a weight that seemed heavier than metal, as if the camp itself knew he was doing something forbidden. Finally, the last chain came free. The alien warrior stood tall, stretching her limbs slowly, like someone awakening from a long dream. She was taller than him, her presence filling the space. The soldier took a step back, his hand ready near his weapon again. But she did not attack. She simply looked at him, eyes shining in the moonlight. "You are free now," he said softly, though he wasn't sure why. Her smile widened, almost amused. For the first time, she spoke, her voice deep and smooth, carrying an echo that felt ancient. "Free," she said, tilting her head. "No, human, this was always the plan." His heart sank. The air around him felt heavier, the shadows thicker. He realized then that he had not rescued her. He had released something far more dangerous than he understood. And as she stepped forward, unchained and unbroken, the soldier knew one thing for certain. Whatever game he had entered, it had only just begun. The soldier's hands were still shaking. The sound of the last chain falling echoed in his ears like a warning he could not ignore. He had freed her, though he still did not understand why. The alien warrior stood in front of him, tall, calm, and strangely unafraid. Her eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, as if they held secrets older than the ruins around them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence pressed down on him, heavier than any battlefield silence he had known. Finally, he found his voice. "You should go," he whispered, his words uncertain. "The camp is not safe." The warrior tilted her head slowly, her dark hair falling across her face. Her lips curved into that same unreadable smile. "You freed me," she said at last, her voice carrying both power and calm. "Do you know what that means?" He swallowed hard, unsure how to answer. He wanted to say he freed her out of pity or out of courage. But deep inside, he knew it was neither. It was something he could not explain, a pull, an instinct, a decision made by his heart before his mind had time to argue. Instead of answering, he looked away, his hand tightening on his weapon. The warrior stepped closer, the sound of her bare feet against the stone floor unnervingly soft. She moved like someone who had never truly been chained, every step measured, powerful, and deliberate. "You are afraid," she said, her voice low. "That is good." Her words made his pulse quicken. Fear, she seemed to say, was not weakness, it was wisdom. He wanted to ask her who had chained her and why. But before he could speak, a sound broke the silence. Distant footsteps, heavy and metallic. The soldier froze, his training returning instantly. He knew that sound. Enemy patrol drones, programmed to destroy anything that moved within the ruins. "Stay here," he hissed, raising his weapon. But the warrior only laughed softly, the sound echoing like steel against steel. "Stay? Human, I have stayed long enough." Before he could stop her, she moved. Her chains may have been broken, but she was faster than he had imagined possible. She blurred into the shadows, and then the sound of metal tearing and sparks flying filled the air. The soldier rushed out, weapon ready, only to stop in shock. The drones lay scattered, torn apart like toys. The warrior stood among them, her chest rising and falling with calm breaths. She wiped a streak of dark fluid, machine blood, off her arm with casual ease. Her eyes met his again, and for the first time, he saw something different in them. Not just mystery, not just patience, but purpose. "You asked why I was chained," she said, her voice steady. "It was not to keep me in." She stepped closer, her gaze sharp. "It was to bring you here." His stomach turned cold. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to escape. But his feet refused to move. Her words echoed in his mind. "Bring you here? What do you want from me?" he demanded, his voice louder than he intended. The warrior stopped only inches away, towering above him. "What I want," she said, her smile returning, "is what you already chose." He didn't understand, and that made it worse. He had freed her without knowing why, and now he was caught in her game. But there was no going back. The camp behind him was crumbling, the night ahead uncertain, and she, the warrior with chains that were never meant to hold, was already walking forward, expecting him to follow. The soldier hesitated, his heart pounding. Every step he took toward her felt like a step away from the world he knew. But curiosity was stronger than fear. He followed, though deep down he knew he was not the one leading this path. He was being led. The ruins grew darker, the air colder. She moved with confidence, as if every shadow was her ally. Finally, she stopped before a massive steel door, half buried under rubble. She pressed her hand against its surface, and strange symbols lit up beneath her touch. The soldier stared in disbelief. This was no prison. This was a vault. The door groaned as it opened slowly, a cold wind rushing out from within. The warrior turned to him, her eyes gleaming. "Your chains are waiting inside. Human," she whispered. "Do you have the courage to wear them?" The soldier's breath caught in his throat. He realized then, his decision to free her was not the end of his choice. It was only the beginning. The heavy steel door rumbled as it closed behind them, sealing the outside world away. The soldier's heart raced, each echo of the door sounding like a final warning. He followed the alien warrior into the darkness, the only light coming from strange glowing veins running along the stone walls. The air was cold, filled with a metallic taste, as if the place itself had been asleep for centuries. The warrior moved ahead without hesitation, her steps silent, her posture calm. She seemed to know exactly where she was going, every turn and every shadow as familiar as her own breath. The soldier struggled to keep up, his boots loud against the floor, betraying his nerves. Something about this place felt wrong, too quiet, too perfect, like a trap waiting to spring. He whispered, "Where are we going?" But she did not answer. She only lifted her hand, signaling him to stay silent. Moments later, the silence broke, metallic footsteps marching in rhythm. The soldier froze, his weapon ready. Out of the shadows came tall figures, machines of war with glowing red eyes and weapons fused into their arms. The drones were not like the patrol units outside. These were stronger, faster, made for destruction. Their red eyes locked onto him, ignoring the warrior as if she didn't exist. He felt the heat of their targeting systems scanning his body. In that moment, he knew he was the prey. Before he could fire, the warrior moved. She leapt forward faster than human eyes could follow, striking one drone with a force that shattered its metal frame. Sparks exploded in the dark as the machine crashed to the ground. Another lunged, but she twisted gracefully, ripping its arm away and driving it into the chest of the third. The soldier fired into the chaos, but his bullets barely scratched the armored shells. He realized the truth. Without her, he would have been dead in seconds. The battle was over almost as soon as it began. The warrior stood among the wreckage, her breath steady, her eyes burning with that same unreadable fire. She turned to him slowly. "Do you see now?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but her words cut like blades. "These chains you broke were not for me. They were for you." The soldier felt his chest tighten. Every answer only gave birth to more questions. He wanted to shout at her, demand an explanation, but the ground shook beneath them before he could speak. The walls trembled as an alarm echoed through the chamber, red lights flashing along the ceiling. The vault was awake. Something deep inside had sensed the battle, and now the whole structure seemed alive. The warrior grabbed his arm firmly, pulling him forward. "This way," she commanded, and though he wanted to resist, he followed. The corridors twisted like a maze, each turn leading deeper underground. The soldier felt trapped, the air heavy, his instincts screaming that every step was taking him further from safety. But there was no turning back. The door behind them was sealed, and the machines outside would never let him escape alone. As they ran, he noticed something strange. The warrior was not guiding him randomly. Every symbol on the walls lit up as she passed, glowing brighter at her presence. It was as if the vault recognized her, welcomed her. But the machines, the alarms, the doors, all of them reacted to him. The realization hit him hard. He was not just following her, he was part of the design. They finally reached a massive hall. At its center stood a colossal machine, towering like a god of steel, its surface covered with ancient markings. The warrior stopped, her eyes gleaming. "This is why you came?" she whispered, though he had never chosen to come at all. The soldiers stared at the machine in awe and fear. It pulsed faintly, waiting, and then, as if sensing him, it awakened, panels sliding open, lights flaring, the sound of gears echoing through the hall. The warrior stepped aside, her gaze locked onto him. "It will not answer to me," she said softly. "Only to you." His throat went dry. He took a step back, shaking his head. This isn't my fight," he stammered. But deep inside, he knew he was lying to himself. Every step since the moment he freed her had led here. Every choice had already been written. The warrior's voice echoed through the chamber, powerful and calm. "You freed me, human, but in truth, you freed yourself." She raised her hand toward the machine, then toward him. "Now, it is time to finish what began the moment you touched my chains." The soldier's chest pounded as the machine's lights grew brighter, filling the hall with blinding radiance. His heart told him to run, but his legs carried him forward, step by step, toward the waiting machine. And as his hand reached out, trembling, he realized the truth. Escape was never the plan. It was always about this. The chamber trembled as the great machine roared to life. Its body glowed with ancient energy, veins of light spreading across its surface like fire racing through cracks of stone. The soldier shielded his eyes, but the alien warrior stood calmly, her face illuminated by the brilliance. She looked as if she had seen this before, as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. The machine's lights turned toward the human, not the warrior. A deep hum echoed in the chamber, and the air grew heavy, pressing against his chest. He felt a pull, invisible chains wrapping around him, dragging him closer. His legs shook, but his body obeyed the unseen force. He was being chosen, and he had no idea why. The warrior finally spoke, her voice low but commanding. "This place was not built for me," she said, her gaze fixed on him. "It was built for your kind, long before you even knew of the stars." Her words sent a shiver down his spine. Humans? Built for this? It made no sense. He wanted to argue, to demand answers, but his voice was lost in the humming storm. The machine extended a platform, etched with strange symbols. The soldier stumbled onto it, drawn by instinct and force alike. The platform glowed beneath his boots, reading him, testing him. The warrior watched closely, her eyes sharp, her expression unreadable. When the machine finally went still, a silence heavier than death filled the hall. Then, without warning, blades of pure energy shot out from the walls, slicing through the air toward him. The soldier cried out, raising his weapon uselessly, but before the blades could reach him, the warrior moved. She was faster than thought, her body a blur. With her bare hands, she caught the blades, twisted them, and shattered them into sparks. The chamber shook with the force of her power, the echoes of her strikes thunderous. Her chains may have been broken, but in truth, she had never been bound. The soldier stared in awe and terror as she destroyed the impossible with ease. When the attack ended, she stood unharmed, her breathing steady, her hands glowing faintly from the energy she had absorbed. She turned her head toward him, her eyes blazing like molten silver. "This is my strength," she said calmly, "and yet I was chained." The soldier's throat tightened. He could not understand. If she was this powerful, why had anyone thought they could imprison her? And more importantly, why had she let herself remain bound until he came? "You could have escaped at any time," he whispered, his voice trembling. The warrior smiled faintly, the same unsettling smile she had given him when he broke her chains. "Yes," she admitted, "but freedom without purpose is nothing." She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. "I did not need to escape, human," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. "I needed you." The soldier's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed that he was caught in something far larger than himself. The warrior continued, her tone calm, but unyielding. "The machine listens only to your kind, but it obeys only those strong enough to stand beside me." Before he could respond, the machine came alive again, its voice a deep vibration that rattled the stone. Symbols flared on the walls, forming patterns that pulsed with meaning he could not read. The warrior raised her hand, and suddenly, her body glowed with energy she had stolen from the blades. She extended the power outward, striking the machine with a surge of light. The walls shook, the ground cracked, and the soldier fell to his knees. What he saw next burned into his mind forever. The warrior's true power was not strength alone, it was control. She commanded energy like a storm, bending it to her will, shaping it into weapons, shields, even life itself. She stood radiant and terrible, more than a soldier, more than a prisoner. She was something ancient, something designed to change the fate of worlds. When the storm ended, she turned to him, her eyes blazing. "You wonder why I smile when you freed me," she said, her voice steady. "It is because you believed you chose, when in truth the choice was never yours." The soldier felt the weight of her words crash into him. He had not been a savior, not even a hero. He had been part of her plan from the beginning. And now, standing before her, he realized a terrifying truth. Her chains had never been meant to hold her. They had been meant to lead him here. The echoes of the storm still rattled in the soldier's chest. Smoke and dust drifted across the vast chamber, broken machines sparking at his feet. He stared at the alien warrior, her body glowing faintly with stolen power, her eyes alive with something both fierce and calculating. For a moment, he could not move, could not even breathe. He had seen strength before, on battlefields, in machines and weapons, but never like this. She turned slowly, her gaze shifting toward the far end of the hall. The soldier followed her eyes, and for the first time noticed a shape hidden in the shadows. A massive structure stood there, half buried in rubble, its surface marked with the same glowing symbols as the walls. It looked less like a machine and more like a heart, pulsing faintly alive, waiting. The warrior walked toward it without hesitation, her steps silent but sure. The soldier hesitated, then followed, every instinct screaming that he was walking deeper into a trap. He tightened his grip on his weapon, though he already knew it would be useless if she decided to turn against him. When they reached the device, the warrior stopped. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "This," she said softly, almost reverently, "is the core." Her hand brushed the surface of the machine, and the glowing symbols flared brighter, reacting to her touch. But nothing opened, nothing moved. Instead, the light pulsed faintly, as if waiting for something. The soldier frowned, his voice rough. "What is it?" The warrior looked at him, her smile faint but sharp. "It is the weapon that will end this war," she said, "or begin another." Her words chilled him. A weapon, hidden here for centuries, and she had brought him to it. He shook his head, stepping back. "No," he muttered, "I don't want any part of this." But the warrior's eyes followed him, steady and cold. "You already chose when you freed me," she said, her tone cutting through his denial. "You are part of this whether you accept it or not." She pressed her palm harder against the core, but the device remained still. Her hand glowed with energy, her power surging into the machine. But nothing happened. Finally, she stepped back, her eyes narrowing. "It will not answer to me," she admitted, her voice sharp with frustration. The soldier felt his chest tighten. He already knew what she was going to say before the words left her mouth. "It responds only to your kind," she said, pointing toward him. "The chains, the prison, this vault, it was never mine." Her tone softened, though her eyes remained sharp. "It was built for you." He shook his head violently. "I'm no chosen one," he snapped. "I'm just a soldier, nothing more." But the warrior only laughed softly, the sound low and dangerous. "You think small, human," she said, "but the stars do not." The soldier's eyes darted to the core, its faint glow pulsing faster now, as if it could hear their words. It was alive, and it was waiting for him. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "What happens if I touch it?" he asked, his voice shaking. The warrior stepped closer, her gaze locking onto his. "If you touch it," she whispered, "you awaken the power buried in your blood. The power your kind was never meant to remember." The silence that followed was unbearable. The soldier's heart raced, torn between fear and something deeper, curiosity. He looked at the core, glowing like a sleeping heart. Every instinct told him to walk away, to leave this place and never return. But every step he had taken since freeing her had led him here. And something inside him knew walking away was no longer an option. Before he could move, the ground shook again, alarms blared, and the walls split open, revealing hidden passages. More drones poured out, their weapons glowing, their red eyes fixed on him. The warrior moved instantly, standing between him and the machines, her voice sharp. "Go," she shouted, "the core is yours. Only you can awaken it." The soldier hesitated, torn between helping her and obeying her command. But the choice came too quickly. The drones opened fire, and the warrior's body blazed with light as she fought them off. Her strikes were brutal, her movements perfect, but the machines were endless, and he realized her power alone would not be enough to hold them. The core pulsed brighter, calling to him. The soldier's chest tightened, sweat dripping down his face. This was the hidden agenda, the reason she had been chained, the reason he had been brought here. Not to free her, but to free this. The question that burned in his mind was no longer what is it, but what will it do once I awaken it? The chamber was chaos. Energy blasts tore through the air, red sparks flying as drones poured from hidden passages. Their metallic bodies gleamed in the dim light, weapons locked on the human soldier, not the alien warrior. The warrior fought like a storm, her body moving faster than his eyes could follow, each strike breaking machines like glass. But there were too many, and even she began to slow. The soldier pressed his back against the core, his breath heavy. The glowing heart of the machine pulsed with every beat of his chest, as if it were alive, as if it were waiting for him. But his mind spun with doubt. The warrior had lied, or at least kept the truth from him. She had been chained not because she was weak, but because she had needed him. He was not her savior. He was her key. He gripped his weapon, firing into the swarm of drones. The bullets sparked uselessly against their armor, doing little more than slowing them. One machine lunged toward him, claws outstretched. Before it could strike, the warrior appeared, smashing it aside with a single blow. Her silver eyes locked onto him, fierce and commanding. "Touch the core," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Do it, human. Without you, all is lost." He stared at her, his chest tight. Her words sounded like desperation, but also like control. Every time she looked at him, he couldn't tell if she wanted to save him or use him. "Why should I trust you?" he yelled, his voice shaking with anger. "You've lied to me since the beginning. You let me think you were a prisoner when you were waiting for me." The warrior's face was unreadable, her strikes tearing another drone apart. "Yes," she admitted, her voice sharp, "I needed you, but that does not mean I wish you harm. If I wanted you dead, you would not have lived to break the first chain." The words struck him, and yet the doubt remained. The drones advanced, filling the chamber with the sound of metal and fire. The warrior turned to him again, her voice raw. "Without you, the core will never awaken, and this world will burn." Her tone shook him, because beneath the steel, he heard something else, fear. The alien warrior, so powerful, so untouchable, was afraid, not of the machines, not of the battle, but of him refusing to act. The soldier's mind spun. Was this fear real, or just another layer of her plan? He thought of her smile when he freed her, the calm in her eyes, as if she had known this moment all along. And yet, if everything had been a trap, why risk herself now? Why fight so fiercely to protect him? Another drone broke through, knocking him to the ground, its claws reaching for his throat. The warrior leapt, tackling it with a roar, but not before the soldier felt the sting of metal against his skin. He gasped, his chest heaving. She stood above him, her silver eyes burning, her voice shaking for the first time. "I cannot force you, human," she said, "but if you do nothing, you doom us both." He looked at the core, its glow bright and steady, calling him like a heartbeat in the dark. He looked at her, battered but unbroken, her body glowing with power, her face caught between command and pleading. And he realized the truth. Trusting her might doom him, but refusing her would doom them all. His hand trembled as he pressed it against the core. The surface was cold for a moment, then burned like fire. Symbols flared across the machine, light bursting outward, filling the chamber with blinding radiance. The drones froze mid-attack, their bodies shuddering as the energy surged through them. One by one, they fell lifeless to the ground, their red eyes dimming. The warrior staggered back, watching in awe as the core awakened. Her face, usually so calm, now glowed with something new, relief, and maybe even respect. "You chose," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You finally chose." The soldier fell to his knees, his body trembling from the force that had passed through him. His vision blurred, but he saw her standing tall before the core, her chains now nothing but memory. For the first time since he freed her, he wondered if he had made the right choice, or if he had just given her exactly what she had wanted all along. Light filled the chamber like a rising sun. The core pulsed wildly, beams of energy shooting across the walls, carving glowing rivers into the stone. The soldier fell forward onto his hands, his chest burning, as if the machine had reached inside him and stolen something. His vision blurred, but he could feel it, power flowing through him, wrapping around him like invisible chains. The drones lay silent on the floor, their bodies broken, their eyes dim. The battle was over, but the war inside his heart had just begun. He looked up at the warrior, her silver eyes fixed on him, not with command this time, but with something stranger, recognition. She stepped closer, her voice quiet, almost reverent. "It has chosen you," she whispered, just as I knew it would. Her words made his blood run cold. "You planned this," he rasped, his voice weak but filled with anger. "You knew all along what would happen if I touched it." The warrior's smile was faint, but it carried no triumph. "I knew the possibility," she admitted, "but even I could not be certain. The core accepts only those it deems worthy. Now it listens to you, and through you, the war can end." The soldier staggered to his feet, his body trembling with the aftershock of the core's energy. He felt stronger and weaker at the same time, as if every nerve in his body had been rewired. He clenched his fists, sparks of faint light flickering at his fingertips. "What did you do to me?" he demanded, his voice rising. The warrior's expression did not change. "I gave you the truth," she said softly. "You were never just a soldier. Your kind was chosen long before this war began. You are not a weapon, yet you hold the key to one." The words echoed in his mind, but they brought no comfort, only dread. If what she said was true, then he was no longer just himself. He was part of something ancient, something far beyond human understanding. The chamber trembled again, a deep groan rolling through the walls. The core's light flared brighter, symbols racing faster across its surface. The warrior looked toward it, her face calm. "The awakening has begun," she said, "and there is no stopping it now." The soldier's stomach dropped. Awakening of what? He wanted to run, to escape this place before it consumed him. But the door behind them had sealed long ago, and the only path forward was the one she had chosen for him. The warrior stepped close, her voice low. "You must decide, human. The core will answer only to you. With it, you can save this world or destroy it." He shook his head, his chest tight. "I don't want this. I never asked for this." Her silver eyes softened for the first time. "No one ever does," she said, almost gently, "but choice has found you, and you cannot turn away." The ground split open at their feet, cracks of light spilling upward like molten rivers. The chamber itself seemed alive, reacting to his heartbeat, his fear, his doubt. The core roared like thunder, and the soldier staggered, gripping his head as visions flashed through his mind. Cities burning, skies filled with fire, alien armies clashing, and at the center of it all, him, standing with the warrior at his side. He gasped, falling to his knees. What is happening to me?" The warrior knelt before him, her voice firm. "The core shows you what may come," she said, "not what must. That is your choice." He looked into her eyes, searching for truth, but her gaze remained a storm, fierce, unreadable, and yet undeniably sincere. He realized then that trust and betrayal no longer mattered. The real question was not whether she had used him, but what he would do now that the power was his. The core flared once more, the light blinding. The chamber walls began to collapse, stone falling around them, the air filled with fire and dust. The warrior grabbed his arm, pulling him to his feet, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Decide now, human," she shouted. "Save this world, or watch it burn." The soldier's heart thundered, his body trembling, his mind torn apart by fear and doubt. The power of the core surged within him, begging for release. He raised his hand, light blazing in his palm. The warrior's eyes locked on his, waiting, and in that final moment, as the chamber crumbled and the world trembled, he realized the real chains were never hers. They had always been his. The light swallowed everything, and the choice was made. Though whether it would save or destroy, no one yet knew.